amend their proposal. But I'd like to suggest that they consider, along with those lines, something that you can see the boundaries of the field, not a fence. Casey and I walked the field today, and we were thinking, boy, if there were a series of flags or something, to mark that out, it wouldn't be a fence, but at least people would get an idea of where the field is. A line on the ground, unless you're in a helicopter, you can't see where the field is. So I don't think it improves as far as preventing people from walking across it. I don't think it helps. I think they are not proposing a foul pole. I'm not sure why, but I think they consider a foul pole. I think my theme here is that along with that line, which is I think a good idea, that they and we and Public Works consider a series of flags, whatever they may be. And the purpose of that is that people can actually see the boundaries of the field. The white line doesn't help anybody see the boundaries of the field unless you're standing on the field right next to it. So I think I'm supportive of the concept of that line, but I don't think it's good enough.
And I will, I will sort of continue on that thread where I think the lines painted in the field are, where we are this evening to get things moved along. When Paul and I were walking, what stood out to us was sort of, if we look at, and we had this discussion, I don't know if there must be sort of standards in terms of like impact zones or safety zones when it comes to a baseball diamond. And it would be interesting to see where those zones are and then sort of walk them at ride out, because the area in front of the playground, and there are some trees there that sort of assist with some blocking, but there's a significant sort of triangle of territory there where there's concern. Go ahead.
Casey, if I can interrupt, I have a little slide deck to talk about that specific issue. What I was I didn't mean to interrupt, but I was commenting here on their proposal, which was the line. I think there's more to be done to discuss as part of our discussion here. And I don't know what the procedure is. Should we roll in the safety discussion into this, or should we just kind of look at the proposal? And I'm not sure how to proceed. So
what I'm going to recommend, Paul, is, and that's a good question, is that we stick to the proposal that's in front of us. And I apologize because I was going along with your thread. We'll stick with the proposal in front of us. And I believe Anna has a draft letter of support that could come from us that we can review together. And then we'll continue the conversation on to what is a next step potentially with any, whether it's fencing or any type of field delineation. That would be something to discuss, to weigh in on at a future time, but start the discussion after we determine if we're going to move this proposal forward.
Okay, so I mean, I have no objection to them putting a line on the ground, but I do think their justification or their anticipation that it'll improve safety and help people not to walk on the field, that is, I think that's a stretch. As far as putting a line on the field, sure, I'd support that, but I think we need additional discussions on what to do next.
Part of the other piece that they put in sorry, my computer's going wonky. Part of the other piece that they put in for the helpfulness of the line, certainly maybe a starting point for safety, but they also note that it'll help teach the players a little bit more of spacing on the field. So there's that aspect as well. I don't know if they, are trying to make this the only solution for safety. But I think it's a starting point, when part of the goals that they talked about at the presentation was, teaching the players about the spacing and the how to play the outfield, things like that. So this will help with that goal as well. But I agree, Paul, it's not a solution for.
And I think the lines, both the foul lines and the outfield line, it helps. It's not a solution, but I certainly have no objection to that piece.
And with the first two pieces, which I think are the, Anna, thank you for pulling this up, or Adam rather. So sorry, we have field 3, which is the softball field in the upper right-hand corner. So this is going to be a backstop, a padded backstop. So all of the field 1, 2, and 3 will have matching padded backstops. That is something I support. And I think it will actually really improve the aesthetic of the field as well as the safety. So I'm grateful to CCYB for that. And as far as the batting cages go with the carpet, we did discuss last weekend to ensure that they wouldn't be the crumb rubber type of carpeting. And they did ensure us of that it was more like something you'd put in a sunroom for padding on flooring there. So where I sit, I am good with those pieces, and I am fine with the line. I do agree with Paul. There's another safety discussion to pull out after this. But as far as I'm concerned, they're
What is the Jura recreation? You didn't give me any.
You want one?
I'll take one.
Jim, do you have anything that you want to add?
No, I agree. I agree with the padding and the batting cage turf. And I also agree that, the line could be a starting point for discussion for, future safety in the park.
In their discussion of the line, they talked about a foul pole in the future, and they talked about, I don't know, experimenting with a retractable fence. Do you have a sense of whether they're actually going to go forward with that, or is that, or what they're saying is the line will enable them to think about doing that? We're not agreeing to any of that, but I'm just wondering what their intent of putting that in there was.
Sure. So when they emailed to say that they were going to rescind the original proposal of the black temporary fencing that we saw, they did say that, paraphrasing, they were energized by some of the suggestions that people had, and they are going to dig more to see what options are out there. They want to look at some sort of truly retractable, very portable option, as we discussed quickly at the meeting. So they had mentioned they had 2 or 3 other options that they considered, and that they took them off the table for a variety of reasons. But I think they're going to revisit some of those products again, recognizing the feedback that was received, and potentially dig a little deeper and look at some other communities' options. So there's no timeline for when they're going to come back and talk about that. But they did say that they would plan to look at these options and come back at another time.
Thanks, Anna. I do want to point out one thing on this field. The soccer fields that are on here, the 7v7, those are the ones used by Concord Youth Soccer. But there is a lined full field 9v9 that, and to my understanding, is occasionally rented out by the town. And the lining will go on top of that, which is not a problem for the lines. But it is something to keep in mind with future plans, that there is a full field here that's in use.
Correct. We do occasionally rent the full 9v9 out for a variety of different reasons and for different groups. Middlesex Community College, for instance, as their playing facilities have been down, they've used it in the past. Some Frisbee groups, flag football. If you walk over to Ride Out, you'll see there's 2 colors down on the ground right now. The blue outlines the 7v7 fields, and then there's white lines that outline the full 9v9, just to give you an idea of what you're looking at when you're there.
Jen, do you have any thoughts you want to share?
Well, I do like this new proposed version based on comments from the public and the commission last week. I think the line is easy to add. It's, I think I'm definitely in support of that. And I think, like Paul said, looking at and continuing discussions on further safety measures is definitely worthwhile. So I like this so far.
Thank you, Jen. And I will note that Pete Funkhauser cannot be here with us tonight. He had some thoughts based on last week's hearing, but he has not had a chance to review or weigh in on the on this particular updated request. So with that, if the commission members don't have any more comments or questions, why don't we, Anna, then move to a draft? Did you and Adam drafted a letter that could be approved this evening?
I believe this is it. Here we go. So this has not been sent out to you all yet, so we're seeing it all together here for the first time. Just as a recap, with our bylaws, the commission does have the ability to submit letters of support when appropriate for recreation specific initiatives. And this is a perfect example of a scenario where it would be appropriate for the commission to decide to submit a letter of support. I did feel like it was important to start really including that in the beginning of our letters that we might submit. So this piece comes directly from our bylaws, again, kind of showing that you as a commission have the abilities to submit these letters. I then just did a quick recap, that we had a discussion on March 30th and reviewed proposals. And after evaluating the public comment and receiving feedback, thought it was important to include Public Works here. The Recreation Commission supports the donation and installation of the following amenities at Rideout Park with the following specifications and conditions. And this is all the same information from the proposal that CCYB submitted. I did just split out to be more clear exactly where the commission would be approving these additions to be made. Include that CCYB would need to collaborate with Public Works to ensure that the installation vendor and date is pre-approved. And that if the product needs to get replaced, they would come back to the Recreation Commission for approval when that time comes. So we haven't in the past been that clear, but as Casey mentioned earlier, I think this is just a good starting point moving forward, just to make sure that requests are very transparent, they're specific, and the requests that the commission might have are blatantly spelled out in that letter. This is the letter that would then go to the select board. So again, I think it would be helpful to have it all captured in a document like this. I included the pictures, and I think we should do that moving forward as well. Batting carpet. Again, the location is the 2 existing batting cages at Rideout Park abutting the tennis courts. Again, just to be clear, in case any, future batting cages are to be added at the park, which is not on the table right now, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew exactly where they were located. Explain the carpet product and added in that the product is not to have any crumb rubber. Again, CCYB will collaborate with Public Works to assure the installation vendor and date is pre-approved. That was something that I discussed with Public Works. They'd like to be kept in the loop so that if they drive by and they see a crew of people, working at the park, they know what's going on. And that the product, again, should it need to be replaced, they need to come back to the commission for permission to do so. And those are the photos they provided. And then the field lining. So locations, field 2 and field 3, establish the outfield boundary where a fence would exist. Concord Public Works has agreed to paint the field boundary lines. It'd be 185-foot radius from home plate. The materials and application would be the same as the soccer lines. Public Works has agreed to use a different color than the lines painted for soccer. There's an opportunity here for you all to specify, right now it's just that the lines would be painted for the spring season, April through June. But you as a commission could decide if you want to open that up for, summer ball or fall ball. And again, that CCYB, I'm gonna add the S, would come back to the commission to discuss any additional boundary options, including but not limited to fencing or flagging. And then just closing that the commission and department look forward to continually collaborating with CCYBS and Concord Public Works to assure that our parks and playing fields continue to meet the needs of our community. So feel free to tear it apart. I just wanted to get a starting point for everyone.
And I really like the structure of this in that it's specific, because I think that as this goes to the select board to determine whether or not they accept the gift, having as much information as specific information as possible is important, but also when these gifts come, to be clear about the lifespan of the gifts and or shelf life rather, and the approval for a new product, and understanding that, what that relationship looks like going forward. So thank you. I think this is an excellent template for us to use going forward.
Sure, no problem.
I have one question, actually one word. In the field, the second dash in the field lining, to establish an outfield boundary where a fence normally would exist.
Okay.
It's a little ambiguous when it says what normally, because that's the implication, normally would exist. Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question too.
Sure.
I'm not a baseball person, so maybe this question isn't relevant, but as far as the two products proposed that have 15-year shelf life, is there any maintenance necessary? Or it's kind of like you set it up and then it does this thing for 15 years, or is it like, let's say it needs new painting or something like that on the sign, who's responsible for that? Or just gonna, like, if it wears down, oh well, wait till 15 years.
So it's actually like it's a pad. So it comes pre-printed. So there's no paint maintenance, but that's a good point. I wonder we should all decide if we should add in, in each of these sections that the purchase or maintenance, like financial responsibilities, are CCYB's, or, that's up for discussion. That's a good point, Jen.
Those pads are up all year round, right? They're not removed in winter time.
Correct.
Yeah, so there is probably weathering that takes place over time. I'm not sure how that affects the 15-year shelf life.
Matt, if you're available to comment, when the select board approves other gifts, is there language around maintenance and wear and tear issues?
We can put conditions onto anything that we get. I would assume that there's standard language for this kind of thing. For example, we already have backstops that we've received. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of regular maintenance required for these, right? It's really, they have a shelf, they have a life, and then you take them down when they wear out.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Yeah, I
Certainly.
don't think we need any specific language in this case, and I don't recall us having established it in the past.
Okay.
But yeah, at times we do have, for other types of things, we have detailed language about, maintenance or covering the cost of removal at the conclusion of its life or things like that. But it doesn't seem necessary for something this straightforward to me. Again, if we have a precedent where we do that, then let's do it.
Anna, do you know of a precedent for that? I'm not aware of one.
I'm not aware of one. I don't know if I was here when the backstop padding. Well, I wonder if they installed it in 2017. I don't know when the product was installed on field 1.
I don't think it was very long ago. I think it was even maybe in the last year or so. It's pretty new.
So I don't recall that coming through my desk, at least. Maybe Ryan, the previous director, had some conversations with them about that. So anyways, I don't think that there is a past standard practice for including that sort of wording.
For practical purposes, I think CCYB is actually really thoughtful about making sure that stuff that they've gifted amenities that they've been part of don't look run down. If something is falling apart, they take care of it pretty quickly. So, you know, unless there is precedent that we can find, Anna, on something that's like padding, I think it's, you know, we don't need to get into the nitty gritty on it. If it were a bigger, a scoreboard or something like that, then that would be a different conversation, I think, and we'd want to include that language.
Sure.
I have an additional question on the field lining. Is that a one-time application? What happens to lines with grass growing and mowing? Does that have to be reapplied?
Yeah. Yes, they reline them quite regularly as they mow and, you know, wear and tear. So I don't know off the top of my head if it's weekly or bi-weekly, but they keep the fields lined very well, and they're already over there lining for soccer.
So that's implied in the proposal that they'd be maintained.
Just that I put Concord Public Works has agreed to paint the playing field boundary line. But we can certainly add more wording if people are more comfortable with that.
Well, I don't know if it's needed or not. If that's understood, which I'm sure it is with all foul lines and all fields, we probably don't need it.
Yeah, they didn't seem at all concerned with the extra request when I spoke with them today. He said, no problem, we can do that. And they might actually even be able to get to it as early as next week, depending on how the rain works out these next couple of days. I'll
As
scroll
far as
back up
the
to
frame, the April through June, I'm fine with keeping that in.
I think, looking at that park in the fall, it does become more soccer heavy. CCYB has utilized the fields during the summer or the fall for practices and other opportunities, but the primary sport to use that park in the fall is soccer, which is why, we thought it's fair then for the spring to be the baseball line times and the fall to be primarily just soccer. But again, all of this is open for discussion and increasing dates and times, things like that.
And CCYB is the only organized users of the baseball field in town. I mean, kids are going to want to be on the field and hitting baseballs at other times, not in an organized way.
Correct. We don't receive any other permit requests from any other groups that play baseball or softball currently.
And if we wanted to change, if we, as we look into this further and have a more in-depth conversation about safety, we could always change that seasonal line painting and ask DPW if they would continue it into the summer and fall.
Mm-hmm. And
So
I see that being an easy discussion at a recreation commission. I don't know if that necessarily would require another public information meeting for a small change like that if it's approved tonight. So I think we could easily adapt that and make it work depending on, the future and what the requests are.
Hey, I have just looked up and found our minutes from the select board of January 4th, 2021, at which we accepted the gift of the backstop, the first backstop, I guess, at Field 1. And so that was a $2,500 gift from Concord Carlisle Youth Baseball, donation of blacktop padding worth approximately $2,500 for right outfield. So that was just done on our consent agenda. There were no conditions attached. There was in our packet a picture of the backstop padding, just like we had for the prep for this meeting tonight. So I think that's in line with what would happen here. You know, we'd have that support letter from you. We would have the specifications. We'd have some amount that the value. And then we would, you know, either it's up to the chair whether she'd put it on a separate vote as an agenda item, or we would just roll it into our consent agenda for the select board.
So Matt, would you recommend then that with these sorts of documents, we add in the value?
I don't think that you need to value item by item, but the total value
Okay.
we would need. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have that for tonight, everybody, but I can. certainly-
Yeah, I don't think it's important for tonight.
Okay.
It's really just for a gift acceptance. I think we need to value the gift.
Thank you, Matt, for catching that, and very impressive how quickly you were able to work through select board meeting minutes in the time that you were sitting here. So
Is our town website. I give them credit.
Yeah, love it. I like the plug for the town website. Commission members, if there's no other questions or discussion, I'd like us to move forward. And I would say that, you know, this would be a vote to send this letter. And it would also in it, Anna, so we can vote to approve it and make some provision that you'll add the total gift amount to it so that you don't have to, we don't have to bring this back up later and vote on it when you have the total gift amount.
As we're talking about meeting dates and finding minutes and stuff, I wonder too, if it would be helpful if in this sort of document, we put the date of the meeting at which this letter was approved. So then whoever has it, we can all refer to a date and find minutes and such. So
That would be great. And I think that makes sense. Additionally, when you're done doing that, just one small catch.
Okay.
In the top paragraph, I apologize, my kids are watching Encanto in the other room. The last sentence there, the Concord Recreation Commission provides input regarding, can we say something to the effect of pursuant to the commission's administrative code so that we can just reference where we have that authority?
Yep. Administrative code. Concord Recreation Commission provides input regarding public recreation facility. How's that read? Good?
It's probably capitalized administrative code, I think. I'm ready for motion.
Yes, please.
I move that the Recreation Commission approve and support the submission of the letter of support for the proposal in front of us by the Concord Carlisle Youth Baseball and Softball Organization.
A second.
Oh, we got a lot of seconds. Jim can take that second. Roll call vote. Casey Atkins, yes. Paul Bohm,
Yes.
Jen Lutz,
Yes.
Jim Howard.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Paul, just to be mindful of time, we're at 7:41. Why don't we dedicate the next 5 minutes to having a general conversation and get us started on that safety piece?
Okay, I'll try to get through it. So let me, I have, because I'm a consultant, I have a PowerPoint to share. It's just photos. So what I'm going to discuss here in no way implies that baseball should not be played at Rideout 2. What I am concerned about some safety issues and the genesis of that twofold. One, at our meeting last week, a couple of safety issues came up, one directly related to the fencing and then some general safety issues. And there weren't any closure or satisfactory dialogue on that. Secondly, I've been witness to organizations and playing baseball, and where spectators get hurt and sometimes severely hurt in well provisioned fields. And so Casey and I walked the field today. Let me try to share this with you. Hopefully you can see this, and I'll go through it quickly. I want to share those concerns. I'm not sure if we want to do those concerns today, whether we want to make a motion to do something or just table it for further discussion, or kick it back to CC, Concord Youth Baseball and Softball. So very quickly, this is Ride Out 1, 2, and 3. I'm talking about Ride Out 2 right now. And Ride Out 2 is in the middle of things, which is why we've had a lot of discussion around fencing there. So not only it's in the middle of other recreational activities, but in the close-up, it's in the middle of where a lot of people not just walk, but recreate and hang out, and picnics and little kids. And the two specific areas I want to bring up, one is this area here, which includes the playground, which is at the, if you see my screen in this area of this triangle. And the other one, which is related to our discussion, is related to this line that we just approved. And I want to talk about both of those very briefly. And just, so this is looking at Ride Out 2 into the outfield. And a couple of things I want you to note: that there is fencing that protects the players. Why does it protect the players? Because balls are hit very hard, line drives in that direction. And it's normal. These are sort of the dugout features. So there's protection. There's also fencing protection that prevents foul balls from going straight back and some from going straight up. But a lot of foul balls will travel in this direction, and a lot of fair and foul balls will travel out along both baselines. And I put this picture in here because this field is going to be used by not just little kids, but by 10, 11, 12-year-olds. My son is a 12-year-old. Those guys can hit the ball very hard and very long. And the bats are metal bats, and balls can go out at 80, 90 miles an hour when they swing. So it's not trivial when the big kids get out there. So my areas of concern relate primarily to this left field area. And why? Because this area here is where picnic tables are. There's a playground right behind it that is not fully protected by this fence. And there are some people are watching the games. That's one of my concerns, that I've seen people much too close to this foul line. But I've also seen people in this area. Of course, people will cross the area unbeknownst that there's a baseball game or between innings or whatever it is. But this is my main area of concern. I just want to talk about that a little bit more. Right over this dugout area is the playground area, and foul balls can definitely travel in this direction. Probably not so much because of this fence here, but definitely between these trees. And those foul balls that go out there, they're not little pop flies. They are hit very hard. I haven't seen any injuries out there. I haven't been to games, but I saw a very severe injury in a Wellesley game for a toddler that was hit on the head out here by a line drive. And there were people all around. So things happen. And so not everything's preventable, but I bring up that illustration because there are safety concerns with hard balls flying around batted by big kids. And of course, people will walk in this area. So my area of concern here, and I don't have solutions for it, but the area is there's a picnic table in here, and this area where a lot of people will, not paying any attention to the games, will be walking. And of course, the spectators here, there'll be people walking in the field. And if you go out to that area between the trees and you look into the home plate, this is foul territory. There's a big area here where it's unprotected by balls and line drives here. So I'm just raising this area of concern, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on solutions here, but I think we or somebody needs to take a good look at this field and come up with some solutions, which are not drastic but doable. Everything from having parents assigned from each team to kind of be in these areas to kind of guard and warn people from not going on the field, to perhaps other safety protections. And again, I don't have solutions. I'm raising concerns here. The last issue relates to this, to the circle. I think, and I mentioned earlier, that this is necessary, but not sufficient for either playability or safety concerns. The fencing is off the table for now, but I do think that we ought to consider something vertical, something that CCYB can implement, that if you're standing on the sidelines here, you can look out and see where this line is. So it's a warning, don't walk in that area. It's also helpful for the players to know that, where the boundaries are, and whether that's flags that are positioned along this way or something else, I don't know, but I think there is some vertical addition to this line which will improve safety, certainly, as a warning for that this is the field. And these can be taken up and down pretty quickly. How these are applied, whether Public Works puts in a sleeve or whether these are just poked in the field each game, they come up and down for each game. So those are I just wanted to raise those concerns and some suggestions. And Anna and Casey, I don't know where to go with this. I think we should collectively, or with help from others, pursue this, because I do think there are, with the bigger kids playing more games here, with this very active area between the pavilion and the playground, people hang out here. I think there's some risk here that we've been fortunate not to have accidents, but I'm concerned about the future.
Paul, thank you for that. I think a couple of things right off the bat that come to mind is, one, just getting a sense of what the safety zones are for a baseball field, and that shouldn't be that difficult to do. Number
it will vary by field.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have drawn the same triangle over here, but I mean, there are fewer people over here on this field, and so I agree. I think it needs a look. Go ahead, sorry.
So we'll do that. And I think, as we're looking at for this season, for right now, asking CCYB what instructions they give to their parent volunteers, whether it's a third base coach or first base coach, to assist with people coming in and on the field. So asking if they have any protocol, and asking if they would be willing to put a protocol in place for that. Anna, do you have thoughts from where you sit?
Definitely. So two pieces, and thanks for the presentation, Paul, and the updated pictures to see it in real time. This is really helpful, especially for those that might not go to the park as often. But if you go to the side where the picnic tables are, just so people can see them, my first thing that I think we could request is those picnic tables there are portable. So we could certainly ask Public Works to move them. Don't remove the opportunity for people to casually sit there distracted and potentially not paying attention to the field. It's not that, somebody might move them back, but we could try and get them to the other side of the playground at least, to help immediately get people away from the sidelines. And then the other piece I was talking with Public Works about today, thinking of the safety at the park and the work that they just did at Emerson Park and what sort of evaluation went into that setup. And they did work with a consultant to look at the field safety. Specifically at Emerson, it was related to the 90-foot diamond, which is on Stowe Street, and how balls may now hit the pavement for the ADA pathways and what sort of risk is involved with that. So there are consultants out there that do this sort of stuff. I think that might be a place to start. Get the contact information from Public Works for this company and just talk with them about what does it cost to come in and do an audit of the parks. With the strategic plan hopefully kicking off in a couple of months, I think this is really great timing to look at these things and start putting some strategies in place to unify all of our parks. So the same sort of audits and safety considerations are being done in all of these spaces. So those are the two most immediate things that I think I can help move on and get some information on: moving those picnic tables, and getting the contact information for a consultant to start a discussion.
I had another thought too, after anyone else.
Jen, you're on mute.
I had a separate thought too, but I'll wait for others to comment on what Anna said. I think that was all great ideas.
Go ahead, Jen.
Okay, just since I just learned from the letter of support that the baseball season's already started, April through June. I mean, and based on Paul's comment that, you know, the older kids are the one that's going to be hitting this right by the playground. I was just wondering, like, who schedules the games? There's 3 different baseball fields. Maybe you can shift the youngest kids to that baseball area right there. Is that possible? I'm not sure if one field is better than the other for playing baseball, but the kids who are going to hit the ball really hard, maybe put them away from the playground for the time being until safety measures are put into place. I'm not sure if that's a good idea, but
Yeah. So when we permit the fields, we don't go to the detail of telling CCYB, for instance, what groups can use field 1, field 2, field 3, but it certainly is a discussion point to have with them. I don't know how they pick which age groups necessarily go on the fields. I recognize that there's different size fields for different ages, but I'm not sure if there's an opportunity for that. You know, as I said, the quantity of players is growing, so it might be that they don't have opportunity to push them, you know, to other fields. I'm not sure. I don't have a great answer to that one. And I don't personally schedule based on age, you know.
and Paul, I just want to say your presentation was really great. And it's bringing to my mind again, times a couple years ago, going to the playground, kind of new to the playground area with my little kids and being totally unaware there was a baseball game there and saying, wow, like that could have, you know, there was no accidents, but my child was running to the trees and didn't know there's a baseball game, and I followed. And yeah, it could have, even if there was little signage you could put up, like in the parking lot as people are entering, on the fences as they go to the playground, like, you know, baseball games between 4 and 6 p.m., you know, just something, a colored sign that people could just grab their attention, or even on the picnic tables or something.
You know, I've been at games where umpires have actually told spectators to move back. If you look I've seen spectators on lawn chairs sitting out here in front of this fence. I don't think anybody should be sitting in front of this fence. So there may be, you know, some other lines where spectator areas could be designated here. You know, if that would be a helpful line. You know, just you know, maybe on both sides. You know, it's a safety zone. So I think there's small things that could be done, even as we're getting a consultant looking at the fields.
I think that's a good point. And Paul, you and I were chatting about that today. Like if you could get a big yellow sign that says, you know, be alert, balls and bats hurt, you know, I know they have that in Fenway, but something just giving people a heads up that there are games going on and they need to be aware of the safety surroundings. So as we just being mindful of time, things that we can do from this meeting, because I think the conversation continues. A conversation with CCYB about what procedures they have in place, or if they could put procedures in place, and even a recommendation that they, if possible, schedule the older kids at different fields. I'm sure there's a lot that goes into scheduling that, and I certainly don't want to micromanage it, but being thoughtful to those concerns there. And Anna, if you want to repeat some of the other items that can be done quickly from this meeting or initiated.
Yep. So I'll reach out to Public Works and request that those picnic tables are moved to at least the far side of the playground, so there isn't an immediate invitation to sit right there. And I'll also be getting the name of the consulting firm that looked at the safety of the fields at Emerson Park, and just start to gather what, you know, an evaluation like that would cost, how it happens, who's involved, that sort of stuff. So I will do those things.
Could we also look into signage that could go up on both of those short fences in front of the team benches?
Yep. Yep.
Well, I really think putting a line extending that fence into the spectator areas, that just because then either a parent or the umpire can tell people move back behind the line. Something like that. Is everybody cool about this flag idea? I mean, it's where CCYB would put up each game flags along those lines. Does that need approval by the town to do that? Or because I'd like to have some vertical view of where the outfield line is, and that would keep people away from the playing field.
I am with you, Paul, to have game by game, a vertical flagging or an option for it. My concern is I don't want it to be it has to come down each game in my mind until we figure out if there's a long-term solution for field 2. And I think if there were a proposal for that, we'd need to discuss it at a subsequent meeting and get the specs on it, the details about it, and review it, because there's a lot of passionate, public comment about the fencing. I know flagging is a different situation.
It's definitely game by game, and I'm thinking, get 50 small American flags and just put them along the ground, and you can see it clearly. It's not a big deal, but just so people can visualize that line from a distance.
So if I could just jump in, yeah. So I agree that there should be some sort of something else there. I was a fan of the fence just because it was kind of more robust. In my brief time coaching kid, my son's 8, so I've been coaching for a couple of years now. But in my brief time coaching kids his age and younger, maybe a little bit older, is that these temporary solutions may not work because the kids see something like that and they go for it, they pick it up, they throw it around, they move it around, they take it home. Some other kid that's not even playing baseball grabs it and runs to another field and gets lost. Just the temporary things, in my experience, tend not to work so well, with kids that are at least around the age of 8, 6, 8, 9, something like that. So, and just really briefly, just to go back to Paul, your presentation, thank you so much for putting that together. That was great to see that and have all those visuals. I think the quickest solution, and one that we may want to do kind of in the short term, in the next couple of weeks or months if possible, is to, like, I think you mentioned this, Paul, is to extend that fence by the playgrounds, or maybe even put a taller fence in there. I think that would be great. I mean, if a kid, you're right, if a right-handed kid hits a ball, gets ahead of it, it's going right towards that playground. And I think, now that we've pointed it out in this public forum, it might be good to just put up a taller fence or a taller, longer fence in that area to prevent any sort of foul balls going into the playgrounds. That, personally, I would not, want that ever to happen, because my kids, when they were younger, played in that playground. It's just something that we can get ahead of now, instead of waiting for something to happen this season.
Yeah, I agree with it. I agree with that, Jim. I think that's where the consultant can help us, because what kind of fence, where, how high. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, I just don't know. I think the consultant's a great idea as well, and I just don't know how long that process is going to take. If that's a month, year, 2-year process versus trying to get a taller, longer fence put in sooner, might be a better idea. I don't know.
You and I had a conversation where it was almost, we were joking that cones could probably be an attractive nuisance almost.
Yeah.
Degree.
Yes. Yeah.
I do want to say for this meeting, I think we're open to other temporary fencing, especially game by game fencing, in that it will be a further discussion to see if that fencing along the side, if there's permanent fencing or netting or something that can go up, that would require another meeting with specifics on what would be approved. And I do want to be cognizant of balancing the immediate safety needs and also, the being thoughtful of how Rideout is a multi-use recreational asset. We're fortunate that there haven't been any incidents at this point, but I do think, we can act with urgency to get information around the safety areas and look at what are some things that we could do in, sooner rather than later. But for purposes of this meeting, I don't think it would be prudent to approve any specific type of fencing that we don't have specifics on.
No, I don't think we could do anything now. I mean, I'm just talking like this shorter term than the
Sure.
longer term is, you know.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And I
And
think
this-
another really quick, easy fix is to ask CCYB to have one parent or an assistant coach from each team at each game police those areas along the sidelines for both spectators and innocent bystanders. I think somebody
Yeah.
out there with that responsibility is a minimum, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, I hate to be devil's advocate here, but I have coached the baseball, you know, again, I coach my son's baseball teams, and baseball is kind of unique among all the sports where you kind of need the more parents coaching is better, just because there's so much going on. So, you know, when the kids are at bat, you have one coach that's, you know, especially T-ball, putting the ball on the tee. You have another coach trying to manage the kids on the benches. You have another coach trying to manage the lineup. And so you're so focused on the team that you have no free time in your thought to even think of anything else. And then, you know, it's kind of like getting on a roller coaster for that hour, just trying to manage all the kids, keep them safe. I mean, they have metal bats in their hands, they're swinging them at each other, you know. And then, you know, a lot of times the coaches that are the normal coaches aren't there. And so you have sub coaches that are even less experienced in trying to manage the kids versus trying to manage the adults and families that are around. So I agree. I think it's a good suggestion. I just don't know how realistic it is trying to get a coach to manage the kids, the game, and the parents and families, you know, all at once.
Well, I think I agree, John. I said a coach and or a parent. There are lots of parents come to these games.
Right.
And I really think it's the organization, CCYBS, their responsibility to assure safety. They can't just pass that off. They have to.
I agree. I just don't know. Yeah.
So they should come up with a solution, Hannah, not us.
Yeah, and definitely signage, like bright yellow signage in the parking lot when you're entering. Is there certain times during the day or weekend that is dedicated? It's not, or does it change every weekend?
Adam did all the scheduling for this spring since I was out, but it's pretty blanket. What is it, Adam? 3:30 till, you know, sunset, we'll say Monday through Friday, and then pretty much all day they've permitted the field. But again, I don't know their actual schedule. So oftentimes the youth sports groups will blanket book the property, even though there might be a gap time of, you know, 1 to 2 p.m. there's nothing going on or something like that. But Adam, maybe you have some more insight on the schedule that they have right now.
Yes. Yeah. So basically it's 4:30, basically the sunset on the weekdays, then weekends, like Anna said, they basically book the whole field all day. But again, they might book it from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, but maybe one weekend they only use it for a couple games or whatever. It really just depends. Again, we don't have they don't give us a schedule of like, you know, teams 1 and 2 play at 8 o'clock at the field. It's very general. They just basically rent our space and then they schedule their games.
Yeah, and maybe that's too much detail anyways. Maybe just between the months of April and June, have a sign that says, please notice the baseball will be in session. You know, just draw each of people's attention before they enter the park.
You know, if you go to Fenway Park and I think there's signs like baseballs are dangerous. I mean, there's signs like danger.
Be
Of course,
alert. Foul balls, that's hurt. That's what it says.
Yeah, and that's
Right, but
before
now
they
they have netting.
That's right. Now they put up the netting, but we don't have netting, so we need something that says this could hurt. This is dangerous.
So I think there are some great ideas that are coming out of, you know, low hanging fruit that can be done right now. And there's a conversation with CCYB about, hey, can you encourage your parents and your coaches to keep people back and be mindful of the safety component here, get some signage up and have some conversations. Paul, thank you for that, your slide deck. When you labeled the fields, I was like, this is what I was looking for last week. Thank you. So I appreciate that. And Jen, great comments. Jim, you as well. I want to be thoughtful about time and also about public comment and make sure that we have opportunity for that. I realized in having the commission vote on the letter, I took public comment out of order. The letter really was focused on non-controversial elements of the proposal. So if there aren't other commission conversations to be had, I would like to turn it over to public comment. All right, let's open it
Hi.
up. Public comment. Hi, Jean, go ahead.
Hi, how are you? Thank you all. So I just wanted to thank the Rec Commission, the Rec Department for your thoughtful consideration of this proposal. Appreciate it. We're abutters to Ride Out Playground, so thank you very much for very thoughtful, very thorough consideration. I did just have one comment. I've heard you discussing that there might the potential for fences might come back, temporary or permanent. So I just want to make sure that if and when it comes back from CCYB, another proposal, that we're mindful to notify the entire community, because for this particular issue, abutters were notified. So people on, I think, Conan and Maple Street were notified. But as you saw in the public comments and the public hearing that happened last week, there's a lot of people. Ride Out Playground serves the entire West Concord community. So a lot of people are interested. So just the public outreach would be great if you're going to bring this back for discussion again.
I think that is a good point, Jean, and that's something that we want to iron out, the specific protocol for it and the threshold for public comment. Fencing is clearly an important issue to the surrounding community. And so when it comes to fencing temporary or other in Ride Out, I do think there's going to be a larger conversation and notification of the community.
Terrific. Thank you.
Anyone else like to submit public comment? Susan.
Hi, yeah, I'm Susan Melota-Zenik. I'm on the West Concord Advisory Committee, and thanks again for having this forum to better explain the increased use of Ride Out Park. I was wondering, like, how much more use is the park going to get because of this additional baseball/softball schedule? Is it like there'll be twice as many games during the season, or like, 5 times as many people attending, bringing their kids back and forth? I was just curious to know what the scale of additional activity was going to be.
So we're not anticipating any additional scale. It's just improving the field's current use for the current user group. So I don't see, Monday through Friday daytime youth games being scheduled or anything like that. This is more just bettering the facilities for the current users.
Got it. Okay, thanks so much.
Sure.
Would anyone else like to take a moment to speak? If we have no other comments from the public, I will entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Casey, briefly, could we just set the date for the next meeting?
Thank you. We do need to schedule another meeting at the end of April. And this has to do with the commission's support for the warrant article at town meeting regarding the BD Center and the fund balance. Anna, why don't you give us an explanation?
So the BD Swim and Fitness Fund is Article 45 at town meeting this year. It was pulled off of the consent calendar. So I'll be doing a brief presentation looking at the FY23 budget proposal. My hope is that in our next meeting in April, we could review that presentation and make everybody aware again of what we're looking for FY23. Ultimately, I think it would be really helpful if the commission chair would be available at town meeting to stand up and recommend affirmative action on Article 45 at the town meeting. I think it just would show a nice level of community support and recognition that the article and the budget does get reviewed, by you guys, and you're in support of what we're presenting this year.
Great, thank you, Anna. So as we look at dates, it's the last week of April.
That likely won't work for me because I don't have childcare, but I think you could still probably hold the meeting without me.
Yes.
I am not available the entire week. I'm on travel.
I just wanted to say that it's possible that the article will be on the consent agenda. So consent calendar. So there may not actually be any need to make a statement. I'm kind of try to track down what we decided as working with the moderator. But I think it was one of the articles we were considering to put in on the consent calendar.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That would be great to get that update if that's not necessary.
So Paul, you're not available that entire week. Jen, you are not available that entire week.
The last 2 weeks, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I could probably try if I need to, but it'll be hard.
What we could do, I don't want to be overkill in terms of meetings, but we could schedule a meeting for next week. I'm avoiding that week of the school vacation. I will actually be gone, so I won't be able to share anything. If next week works, we could get it out of the way. And this would just be a meeting to review the article, Anna, and approve it, right?
Yep, and I'm prepared to do that as soon as I have everything ready. So certainly can do it whenever everyone's available next week, later this week, and then we'll wait to hear from the select board or finance committee if in the end we don't even have to present.
And the urgency of April is because town meeting is at the beginning of May.
Mhm.
So thoughts from commission members about next week?
I can do the 12th.
Next week works for me.
All right, the 12th. Jen, how about you?
Yeah, I could work that.
I think it really could be like a half-hour long meeting. I don't think it would need to be long if we don't include anything else on the agenda.
I'd like to just keep it to that unless there's other urgent matters that can't wait until May, later in May. We'll keep it to that because we've
Yep.
folks have devoted quite a bit of time.
Yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks for everybody, so I appreciate it more than you know.
No, we appreciate it, absolutely. So if the 12th at 7 p.m. works, let's go with that and put it on the books.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I am going to make a motion to close the meeting. All those in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.